Boom, 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 boom.
And we are live. The Branders Magazine Talking with Branders podcast, Friday edition live stream, which we're going to start doing every other week now. And our first guest is a good mate of ours, Bill Kenny. And for everyone listening, you will be Bill's episode will be coming out in a couple weeks. We had him down in the studio and we had a great conversation, but I wanted to bring Bill back to talk about something very specific when it comes to rebranding. And before we get into that, Bill, say hello to everyone, give a big welcome. Where are you calling from, and tell us who you are, what you do.
Yo. What's up, everybody? My name is Bill Kenny. I am calling from the great state of New Jersey, as well as Stephen. I live in New Jersey now. I lived here about 10 years at this point. And what do? I co-founded a company called Focus Lab. We now have a second agency called Odie. And what both of those agencies do very specifically is B2B branding.
I love how niche, and we talked a little bit about this on the podcast, how niche you guys went and how, you separated, with the new startup, working with startups in the early stage with Odie. Focus Lab has been around now. You guys been around for quite some time, right? Almost 10 years. 13 years.
13 coming into 14, starting to feel like a long time in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are teenagers now.
Straight up, we're like, we got attitudes. We think we know everything, but we don't know shit. That kind of stuff.
That's exactly right. And hello, New Reach. Hello from Seattle. We got a couple comments coming in. Great to have you here. So Bill's got a book out called Conquer Your Rebrand, and he was gracious enough to send me a copy. It has such great insights in here. Not only how to facilitate a rebrand, but if you're a business, how to identify when it's time to rebrand. And that's kind of the topic that we're going to talk about here. And then Bill's got 5 kind of telltale signs that your business needs a rebrand. And so, Bill, we'll spend a couple minutes per each topic. I got them written down here, but what are these 5 signs and what should businesses be looking out for?
Yeah, let me be clear. I mean, there's like a million different signs.
Yeah.
And kind of like I said, like in the book, it's like, there's a variety of things and they all kind of like map together, but let's try to break them out. The first is the biggest, which is the company is simply at an inflection point. Right, that's a very obvious statement, but let me kind of share what some of those inflection points are. So companies can be at inflection points for a variety of reasons, but let's think about the positioning of the organization is changing, right? Maybe they're going into a new market and they've decided, so I'll use Focus Lab as an example. If we want to be B2B specific and we were not before, does that require a rebrand? For us, we felt like it did, but it was also because of a couple other points that I'll share later. So the positioning changing would definitely be a catalyst to consider a rebrand. Now I'm still under the first point. I'm going to give sub bullets of point 1. The organization's adopting a new name. Right? A name change can be a very big catalyst. That's often tied to other things, right?
Yeah.
A new name might also imply the position is changing and we're going after a new vertical, etc. Architecture is broken. This is most often driven through like merger and acquisition activity. Okay.
With architecture, you mean brand architecture, not that their buildings are falling down.
Correct. Yes. The brand architecture is a mess, let's say.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say that the company has gone from true startup, seed stage, Series A to Series B. Now they're Series D. And along that way, they've acquired 3 other tool products companies. And those things are living within the brand system. But like culturally, it's strange. Externally, from a customer facing perspective, it's strange because it's not all aligned, etc. That would be a huge catalyst and is for us often a huge catalyst with our customers for a rebrand to be a discussion. Diversifying the product, your actual like service stack would certainly be another one, right?
So
we talked about the position changing, but it might not be changing. It might be growing. You might be going wider, like more of a land and expand type of thing. But again, like all these things are what I would call like easy top of mind catalysts to say, if those are true, should we be looking at brand, and is our current brand going to reflect those things we're talking about changing?
Yeah.
The answer is usually no.
Yeah. So usually like a CEO or the C-suite of an organization, I mean, they see this coming, but oftentimes when they meet with you, because they're probably not meeting with you, are they meeting with you saying, Bill, we need a rebrand? Or are they saying, Bill, we need to do something better over here? And then as you uncover the issues, after you're like, well, what you thought was the problem is not actually the problem.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
It kind of depends on where they are in like their brand knowledge, who they have on their team. Is there a primary CMO, or is it still kind of founder led, the project, if you will? But yeah, they're either coming and saying, we know that brand is the solution, because brand is so parent level, it's over the top of everything.
Yeah.
Or, hey, we've got this really acute issue over here. And then we're able to say, well, that's a result of the thing that's bigger. The root issue is actually higher. It's at the brand level.
Yeah.
So the answer is both.
When they have these acute issues, I can assume that there's not just one, that there are many little acute issues, which I think leads us to the second point that where you're going to go is around like, do you often see a lot of just kind of hodgepodging of like micro solutions when really just pull the fucking Band-Aid and like you're gonna do what's right as opposed to trying to be cheap?
Yes. Yeah. I'll take a slightly more sensitive approach, but I appreciate your candor. I don't know that it's always being cheap. You could actually just be unaware.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
They might not necessarily be cheap, but they're like, oh shit, we're moving fast. Okay, we did acquire this company. Okay, we do this thing, and what I've labeled it as like the duct tape and glue kind of issue. You're still building the plane while you're flying it, and it's obvious. Externally, it is obvious, and very much internally, it's obvious, right?
Yeah.
The team can feel that lack of consistency and vision and mission and brand kind of all being connected.
It impacts culture, that internal culture,
heavily.
Right? Yeah.
Heavily. Why am I here? What are we doing? This feels different than that. That feels different than this. Our priorities are always changing. They don't seem aligned to the mission that I signed up for. That mission and vision seems to be scattered and all over the place now. So that duct tape and glue effect, yes, it's a hodgepodge and it becomes very obvious. But what happens is in the beginning, it's maybe not as obvious. And then year over year, as the company grows, it becomes more and more obvious. And then finally somebody flips the light bulb switch and goes like, yo, we got to do something about this.
Right. Is it how when a CEO or a brand comes to you and they have been duct taping and gluing their brand together, and when you illuminate are they often astounded that they were actually doing this? Were they aware that they were doing this? Or was it just they were so reactive that they were just keeping up, never able to become proactive on the brand?
No, I think by the time that it is now in front and center, top of mind for them, they are hyper aware.
Yeah.
They are able to see the forest at
this is an issue kind of have.
Yes. Yeah. It's more acutely, often when we're working with the project team themselves, there's very often like a creative, even more specifically, like a designer, if you will, or even like a writer on that project team. They feel that pain even most acutely, right? Marketing is asking for these assets, but like we have these old ones and we have these new ones and we just kind of push out everything and I'm not able to control it all. So yeah, you're getting both perspectives. You're getting more of that CEO level going like, wow, there's a kind of things are messy. And then the people acting, the boots on the ground going like, yeah, no shit. And I've been suffering for a while with this.
Or the boots on the ground. And I'm not going to call out like a sales staff, but I've been in a lot of situations working with, B2B brands, taking them through a rebranding where their sales team is now taking the liberty to just say, I'm going to do it myself.
Sure.
I'm going to create my own decks. I'm going to create my own sales material. Marketing can't give me what I want and what the customer is saying. So now you have like these competing messages, these competing pieces of creative. There's a lack of consistency.
Correct. Yeah, which is the next point. Are you trying to lead me into the next point? Yeah. Point number 3 in the book is lack of consistency. Now, you could argue, well, isn't that kind of very similar to the duct tape effect and things aren't consistent? Yes, but it could be that things are not necessarily just glued together, but they're just starkly different.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the consistency game. And we could sit here for an hour alone talking about why consistency matters within brand, which we won't do right now. But yes, it's that consistency play of people going rogue. Well, I don't have this thing. I'm just going to make it. I don't have this thing. I'm just going to make it. I need this thing. It has to be made. If not who, it's got to be me. Those are also like naturally occurring events, right? Let's not say that those people are bad. Those things happen, right? That's just the reality of a growing business. But then the result of that is we got to fix that. That's a problem. That's not great. And when you don't have a brand foundation at its core, and then all the way up to the top, a CEO, a leader within the department or organization, I should say, preaching that same thing and aligning that thing top to bottom, the brand very specifically, it's easier to go rogue, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, who cares about visual assets? We're building this giant product. Nobody cares about how I represented visually in a sales deck. Well, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
All of that wants to be in line.
It's almost like you need to have like the brand police.
For sure. There should be brand police. Yes.
I would love to be in the room to help brand the brand police, like uniforms. We need hats. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
like that comes with, there's a lot of responsibility there, a lot of power. But like, there's a little bit of a swagger that comes if you do that right.
Oh, well, you know, on that point though, within organizations, you will see roles of head of brand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you will see that. And I think, you know, I don't think they would want to call themselves the brand police, but I do think it is their job to make sure that the brand internally and culturally is the same as the brand is being expressed externally.
Yeah.
And looking for those big glaring gaps. You can't catch everything on every day.
Sure.
Oh, we just put a social banner up and that's, you know, it's stretched and that's not appropriate to the brand style guides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of style guides, so how much, you know, I mean, brand guidelines, you know, you live and breathe by brand guidelines. And I think as branders, we put a lot of importance and emphasis on it. And I even go a step further to say it's like an operating system now, because you, as much as it has to be rigid, it has to be fluid as well. There's a balance there. What's your take on how a brand should just adhere to the brand guidelines? Like, is it gospel, or does it have room to be flexible?
It has to be flexible. It's weird though, because right at the same time you're trying to communicate, don't do certain things literally in the guidelines, right? It's like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. Here's your color palette. Stay on brand with these, stay on brand with your typography. Here's your photography styles. So you have to adhere to those, but you have to remember that those are foundational. Mm-hmm. The brand is living and growing every single day. The minute that we are done and hand that off, the next day, there could be something that needs to change. Literally, there could be. And that doesn't mean the project is not successful. It could be, oh gosh, like we've got to introduce this other element that we didn't account for yet because the brand is now moving in this direction to appeal to this new type of customer that we didn't know about a year ago, for instance.
Sure.
You know, the 1 day later is dramatic. 1 year later is more realistic. 2 years later, 3 years later, very realistic. That shit needs to be able to grow and expand. So we call it a living document.
Yeah.
We would want the creative team on the other side of that to be building and stretching it. Because here's the other thing. Okay, we're in a project. Let's call it 3 to 6 months. In that window somewhere, generally speaking. How much stuff can we account for and make anyways? Right? How many weeks are just on trying to find the right colors?
Yeah.
And logo and typography sets and the mission articulated in the right way. All that time is spent building the foundation, literally pouring the concrete foundation of the house. We don't have time to pick out every window dressing, every couch, every throw pillow. Bless my wife. 37 throw pillows of different colors. Like we can't pick all those out in the brand effort itself.
Yeah.
So some of that decision making still kind of falls in that, what I'm talking about, that evolution and building upon. So that's it. I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't think that's often understood or even expected as the reality. And it should be embraced and expected.
Well, I almost recommend, you know, like going to the dentist. every 6 months, just do a quick check-in with the brand agency or with your head of brand or whatever that entity is that is, responsible for the consistency and responsible for, pushing the brand forward, and do those internal check-ins. And, not to get all philosophical, but Socrates did say, know thyself for a reason. And so I think those introspective moments shouldn't be saved just when you're going through a rebrand or you're going through something major. Think if you can, microdose on it throughout the year, I guess you could say, then you're going to be kind of ahead of the game always.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was thinking about that a lot just yesterday. I really was. It's not just fodder bullshit for the conversation. I was thinking about what's the book after this book? Yeah. And I don't know that it's worthy of a book. People will be like, that's just a blog post, dude. Maybe it's another chapter. And maybe it's a chapter that's not in the book in this type of detail, which is, yes, you should be revisiting the work that you did. Right. You should be looking at the strategy document again and saying, have we gone off track a little bit? Has anything changed? Do we want to add to it? Fun fact, we have this new service that we call Brand Insights. It's not even public yet. I guess it's pseudo-public now in this live conversation. They're going to be like, where do I find it? Because it's nowhere on our website. But what we do is we go and we take what we would consider a very short amount of time, 5-6 hours. We get a strategist, we get a writer, we get a designer on there, and we actually look at a brand and we give our deep but quick expert opinions on what's working and what's not working as a really lighter touch way for people to engage with this idea of a rebrand before having to drop a ton of money and a huge timeline. And that can be scary, I understand. So we created this service to help people through that psychological kind of stepping. But to this point now, people thinking about their brand and going back and considering what they need to do next. There is a client, they don't know who they are yet, that I'm going to be hitting up next week with a Brand Insights document, like a 20-page document, to say, hey, we worked with you 3 years ago on your rebrand. It was awesome. We love you. You love us. I feel like it's time for you to relook at what you've been putting out there. Not brand police perspective, but opportunity for more growth. Did we really nail the mission 3 years ago? And has that mission changed since then? I see you've accomplished more and more things. That probably means we should relook at some things. That's not just a sales tactic. That's the reality of what we're talking about, which is brand constantly needs to be thought about. It's not a one and done. You don't just we built the rocket ship, we sent it to the moon, the mission is over. It's no, you got to get back from the moon. Yeah. You got to analyze the shit you found on the moon. Where are you going to go next? So yes, that's a long way of saying I really love what you're saying, which is to people that brand has to stay top of mind after launch for years and years.
I equate it to fashion. It's never done.
Please tell me more.
Right? It's never done. It's never over. It's not well, I have a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. I'm good to go. I'm going to wear this every day for the rest of my life. It doesn't necessarily work like that. There are new trends. There's new things to take into account. There's new innovations. Holy shit. Now we have, zipper pants that were the rage, 15 years ago, and warm-ups and whatever. But so just to recap for everyone that's live with us, and thank you. And if you have questions for Bill, throw them in the chat. I know that he would love to answer them. The first one, right, the 5 ways, 5 out of many thousand different ways, but the 5 core ways to tell if your business needs a rebrand. Number 1 is if you reach an inflection point with your business, something drastic has happened. You just maybe outgrew your positioning. Number 2 is the duct taping glue approach, where there's a lot of micro problems and you're solving those micro problems, but then at some point it's becoming a larger problem that we need to address. Number 3 is there's a lack of consistency out there, right? There's just competing different messages, different graphical elements, different look and feels. It's which brand is the real one with the real shady? Please stand up, please. That brings us to number 4. So what is number 4, Bill?
Yeah. So number 4, I called confusion reigns. And yes, it is true that it could be confusing the other buckets that we've already called out, 1 through 3. But let's talk about confusion just from a cultural perspective for a minute. What does this company do? Why does it do it? And why does it matter? That that clarity comes at the brand level, right? So if that is not clear, then you've already got misalignment in every facet of the entire organization. Well, what do we do? Well, we're a product that serves this. Then you ask somebody else in a different department. Well, we're like a company that cares about this. Oh, I don't know. Those aren't the things that I hear or see. That's not the way we portray ourselves in the market, right? So you've got this kind of confusing misalignment. The visuals could still be great. They could be consistent. I'm just using visuals as one example of brand. It's not just visuals, right? Those things could all be true, but it could still be confusing, the brand in general. What do we actually care about? So that is harder to decipher, but it would be a trigger for brand investment to solve that and to really get better alignment throughout the organization.
I think if you like even flip it around, right? Like, does the CEO and the janitor have the same brand story, right? Like, polarities, there's two polar opposites. Like that always intrigues me because, like, would the janitor even know and would they care? But like, I bet if the janitor's working in a place, and a janitor could be any kind of, that's just for reference point. But I think the bigger point here is all sailing in the same direction, and is there that transparency on vision? And otherwise, like you said, there's a lack of there's an abundance of confusion, and for every for every ounce of confusion that there is, it's just that inadvertently gets portrayed to the customer. And the customer starts to see that, right?
Yes, correct. Even if they don't know it, even if it is subconscious, it is apparent. Now, let's pull on that thread for a second. I suspect that the CEO and the janitor of a company like Patagonia knows what the hell that company is trying to do and is bought in.
Yeah.
For the most part. Much better than, say, other companies. It is very clear what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
The planet Earth is their number one priority. I suspect everybody in that company cares about that. I suspect everybody recycles and cares about sustainability. And if they don't, they probably find their way out because it doesn't fit. Yeah. That type of alignment leads to compounding impact at the brand level.
But that's hard, dude, right?
Like, I mean, that's the ideal state, yes, but you can work towards it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say, well, that's the ideal state. I can never achieve that. Like, fuck it, right? You would never say that. You would say, but let's work towards that. And even working towards that, you'll still be in the top 10%, if you will, of a company that has massive alignment, and you will feel the compounding effects.
Yeah. Do you think it's easier for like a smaller company to kind of achieve that alignment than a larger company, or does it not matter if
yes, for the most obvious reasons that we're all saying yes in our head.
Sure, yeah.
Right, just size, right? Can you galvanize 15 people way easier and way faster than you can galvanize 2,500?
Yeah.
Or yes, 100%,
or whatever it is, yeah.
But a huge company with a convicted leader can still galvanize the hell out of a giant group. You want to think about the biggest, most convicted leaders that we've seen, right? We got to go to big names so everyone can relate. The Steve Jobs of the world, even Elon to some degree at Tesla before he's all distracted doing everything else, right? Like the conviction of those people is able to cut through the size dilemma of saying, this is what we care about at all costs, period.
Well, to that leader, that conviction of that leader then becomes the spark plug of the culture of the brand. And now you're buying into the culture of the brand, and it doesn't have room for people who are not aligned. Like you said earlier, right? Then it becomes a natural, there's the door, Jack. Don't let it hit in the ass on the way out.
Yes. Yeah, exactly right. And this, these are big topics, and brand is big. Brand is really big. Yeah, getting brand right is really big. And that means different things to different people. Sometimes for a certain company of a certain size, let's say a seed stage, doesn't need to be a convicted Steve Jobs founder brand level kind of exercise. It might just need visual identity so that the pitch decks don't look like they're working in a bedroom in a basement, and they can get proper fundraising.
Right.
Versus the challenges of a larger company and what
Right.
they're trying to achieve with brand, right? You go through these stages.
You know what you just did, Bill? You just wrote the title of the follow-up to Conquer Your Rebrand. Brand is big.
3 words. It has to be 3 words. I've already known that to be true.
Words. Yeah. Anything more would be uncivilized.
No, it would be off brand.
It would be off
to stay in the system.
Got to stay in the system. All right. So then so that's what we number 4. The fourth point, everyone, was around the idea of brand confusion. Leads us to point number 5, and the final one that you kind of talk about in the book. And I have my own take on this one, but I would tell everyone what number 5 is.
Yeah, I think it's almost kind of like the bucket of everything above to some degree, which is this idea of you've simply grown up. And that could mean anything. You've grown up, so you found yourself in a new position. You've grown up and you actually speak differently than you did before, even though your position is the same. There's so much maturing as a business as you go from a seed stage, trying to get all the way to public, if that's the goal. And at certain stages, so I'll speak for Focus Lab, right? At year 4, we were a very different company, even though we still had a brand that was respected and clear, than we are at like year 10. Which is about the time we rebranded, because we knew that current version of us that we knew we were was not reflected through our brand. Our brand was still kind of presenting us visually, verbally, everything as that year 6 version of us.
Yeah.
And that needed to change. So I would say we were consistent. We were not duct tape and glue. It just didn't actually reflect us anymore. So that's that. You've grown up. It's time to change.
I think about that scene. One of my favorite movies, dating myself here, is Swingers. And
I don't even know that I've ever seen that. Is that
and we're done here, ladies and gentlemen. Well, then this whole thing.
Sorry, I wrecked you. I will watch it.
Well, it's Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau, and Vince Vaughn classically at a diner at 3 o'clock in the morning, half in the bag, gets up on the table of a diner, probably somewhere in New Jersey, not actually LA. And he's like, "You're all grown up, and you're all grown up, and you're all grown up." And like, he's like yelling at Jon Favreau character. And as soon as I was reading that, that's where my mind went. But, we put that one on your weekend viewing list.
There you go. What am I doing this weekend? I guess I'm watching Swingers.
It's a classic. So we've reached the 5 ways to tell if your business needs a rebrand. Bill, tell everyone where they can get in contact you, where they can get in contact with Focus Lab, and where you live on the internet.
Yeah, so I primarily live on the internet on LinkedIn these days. You'll find me if you just Google Bill, or not Google, LinkedIn, search Bill Kenny. You should find me and my bald head avatar.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can find the company at focuslab.agency. The second agency that I referenced early in the intro, which is called Odie, that's odiebrand.agency. We serve 2 different markets, both B2B agencies. And then finally, for the book, conqueryourrebrand.com, or just on Amazon. That's where all the sales go through anyways. Yeah. So really, you could just head straight to Amazon if you prefer.
We have a question, Bill. And the question is, what is the best moment to communicate to your stakeholders that you are doing a rebrand? A great question.
Wow. Yeah. Socializing the idea that a company needs a rebrand, socializing it, meaning like to the stakeholders and up, if you will, is a special skill.
Lobbyist.
Yes. And when is the right time? Shit, that's too varied. There's too many variables in there. I don't know that there's a silver bullet right time. It is more important in how you do it. Right. So you would want to show factual stuff, right? You don't just want to go like, hey, I think we need this, right? Like, you should show the actual pain points, what's broken. You would want to show in your mind what the resulting impact of fixing those things would be. I'll speak more through a design lens because I'm a past designer, so that's the easiest for me. Speaking to like efficiency of, if I had these tools, be it a style guide with clear visual guidelines that speak to our customers better, I could be more efficient at my job and more impactful, right? So showing the result of that is going to be really helpful. Trying to also show them other companies of similar size and scale that have really leaned on brand and are therefore leading the category.
Like best in class.
Yeah, generally a founder, if we want to go all the way up to the founder level, are very competitive. They don't want to be losing. So if you can point out people that are winning and you're able to show that it's like brand that is separating them, that's certainly going to help your argument.
Yeah.
In trying to get the right allies in the company it would probably be the third off the top of my head. Sometimes you can get a strong ally in the company that can basically champion you and has some real like equity and can throw a big punch, would certainly help that effort.
Yeah, no, that's great. We've got a couple more questions if you have time.
I do. Yeah,
I think this one has to do with Focus Lab from our friends up in Seattle. Is all your work internal, or do you ever bring in outside vendors to help facilitate with projects?
All internal.
Yeah.
We don't do any kind of like growing to demand by hiring contractors and stuff. Our team is our team, and we fulfill the work that we can fulfill.
And I think that's a testament to not just like the work, but the culture that you've amassed. And
correct. Yeah. It's not a knock to contractors and all that, but we find that for us to control, it's kind of like going back to Apple. Like you can't take the battery out of your Apple iPhone. You can't do anything on the inside. Like we want to control our whole ecosystem, how we represent ourselves, what we stand for, our values. And when you start to bring in outside parties, it's really hard to do that, even if they're great. You know?
Yeah. And then another question, maybe our final one. Could you share an example of a successful rebranding strategy?
Oh my God. Hold on. I got ice in my mouth now.
And is that a Metallica cup?
It is a Metallica cup. Good eyes.
Fucking dope. Speaking of rebranding, I love the Metallica yellow now. And totally, that is so, did you buy that at the concert?
So that was part of our ticket package that we got. We got that free cup. You pay all this money, you get a cup.
Cool.
But I agree with what you're saying. I'm going to get back to the question. I agree so strongly with what you're saying about the new Metallica yellow and how they rolled it out with this new album.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a LinkedIn post just about the Metallica brand.
Cool.
Like, it was so well done from the experience of showing up there and the visuals and everything.
And what Bill's talking about is you got to see them at MetLife Stadium outside of New York, like a month ago when they were there.
That's right. Yeah, I went with my son for 2 days, and it was just so well done from a brand perspective that I want to do a post. And you don't see much on Metallica branding, so maybe I got an angle there.
I mean, Load and Reload was kind of like, meh, but now all of a sudden, 72 Seasons comes out. You're like, there's something really cool here. And the story behind 72 Seasons, what is that, like 18 years of your life? I think that's
correct.
That's
correct.
Really a cool little needle and thread right there.
It was well done. Their pop-up shops, everything was so consistent. You want to talk about consistency? That's going to be what the post is. I'm going to take a picture of all the assets that I got, the cup, the ticket that I made, the shirts, the album, like cover, the actual record. It was
Mars's drum kit, like all of it.
Consistent. They nailed it on 2 colors, right? Black and yellow.
Yeah.
And their logo. They don't even really have a lot of assets. Oh, and like their burnt up stuff that's part of this new visual identity. All right, back to the question.
Black and yellow, and somehow they managed to not look like the Steelers, which is great, or the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah, or like Caterpillar. There's not that many like black and yellow brands like Tonka. What the hell was the question?
An example of a successful rebranding strategy. We may have just hit upon it with Metallica. Like that might be the successful rebranding strategy of the year.
I'm okay with that for 2 reasons. Let's be real. I am not a strategist. I've never been a strategist. I started this company as a designer, as a pure play designer. I have really awesome, talented, smart brand strategists on the team. And I feel like I will hack the hell out of this answer if I try to pin a recent project that we did and how that strategy was successful, because I wouldn't be able to speak about it in an articulate way. So I hate to pass on a question. I don't know that I ever do that. But like, maybe I take it this way. The most successful strategies would be twofold. The first would be, this is actually the second part of the answer, but I'm going to start there. A strategy that really everybody on the client side is bought into. You can come up with all the strategies you want, and if they're not bought into it, it doesn't matter, right? That thing is just never going to fully flesh itself out. So then I guess the question would be then, how do you get them bought in? A successful strategy is going to build off of a narrative, off an actual pain point, in a reason for change, trying to look for opportunity and more of like a blue ocean of an area that you can get into and conquer. That's a little bit more of a positioning challenge. Trying to be unique, but doesn't need to be like the most epic thing I've ever heard of, right? Because again, that's going to be harder to execute on. And what does that actually mean? Strategies should also try to be impactful, but short and like obvious, if you will, like this Occam's razor effect. Like the most obvious answer is like the most clear and simple answer. I think what can happen in a strategy exercise is things can get complicated really fast. You're looking really across all these landscapes and all these competitors and all these options, and a company might have different demographics they're trying to speak to all the time. You got to try to distill that down in a way that everyone can understand. And maybe that's the takeaway. Yeah. If it is something that everybody can understand, they can really rally and get behind it. I would point you to the Focus Lab website, blog, and podcast where the strategists are actually talking, though. I'm a fake on that front. So
no, take that answer for whatever it's worth. Everything you said is so spot on. And what you said about strategy, I live in the strategy world. And oftentimes strategists, we over framework shit, we make shit complicated, and there's this web upon web upon web. It needs, like you said, needs to be simple. There's a book right behind me, right there. If you see called "Strategy Is Your Word" by Mark Pollard. If you don't know who he is, it's a brilliant book that just goes like the fewer the words, the better when it comes to writing briefs and writing great strategies. We definitely got off the topic, but we're gonna go back to Metallica. Metallica was the rebranding of the country. We got a couple more press questions. This is a good one. What do you think about the recent? I definitely have my own opinion on this.
Oh boy.
Question. What do you think about the recent rebranding from Johnson & Johnson?
It's funny that this question came up. I literally, no shit, came off a podcast recording just before this. And part of the conversation we got into was not Johnson & Johnson, but it was, let's be careful as designers, again, I'll just go through that lens. Let's be careful as designers to not get super judgy on the work that hits the streets, because we don't know what was behind the scenes. We don't know what went into it. Now, that's a political answer. Right. I understand, but I think it is important for us to remember. I think we all get real judgy quick. Personal opinion, I don't know. I kind of don't really give a shit. I think it's okay. It's fine. For what they're trying to do, it seems like that might be an okay approach. I think the business is going to be fine regardless. Are we all going to miss maybe a little bit the more of personal kind of aspects of the kind of the scripty type and the heritage that was in that? Sure. I don't think that's going to imply success or not success for them by any means. Living up to the words that I don't know what they said in and around that and what they're trying to achieve, and acting on those is going to be way more impactful than the new typeface choice for that. So,
and then that I answered. I was on LinkedIn and somebody posed that question, and my response, which is very similar to yours, whatever. But then I think the cynic in me is going to ask, does it even matter?
Yeah, I don't think it does matter.
So you who cares? Are your business practices going to change? Is that bad press that you have around talc going to change? Is the bad product sourcing going to change?
Right.
If not, then who gives a shit?
Right. If the foundation of my house is terribly crumbling and I put up a nice new front door, it doesn't matter. It makes no difference. So I guess my answer would also be let's see.
Yeah.
We will know in a couple years if what they're trying to achieve in that little visual change has any kind of impact on what they're actually changing behind the scenes.
But that was a great question, because that is so recent and really relevant. Well, Bill, that was amazing. We had a bunch of people on with us live. We got some great questions. Focuslab.agency.
Got it.
pain point. Sorry. Conquer Your Rebrand is out now. And Bill, thanks for hanging out with us on a Friday. We'll have you back here soon. And until next time, everyone. Peace out.
Looking forward to it. Peace out.